The combat hall of the Valorian Accord station smelled of ozone and old blood. It was carved from black obsidian stone mined from the moons of Kethdara, a place where gravity was 3 times what most species could survive. The floors were polished to a mirror shine. The walls were lined with weapons that had no names in the human language, instruments designed for bodies with 4 arms, or 6, or limbs that bent in directions human joints simply refused. Mara Ellison did not belong here. That, at least, was what everyone assumed. She stood at the edge of the sparring circle, 5 feet 7 inches of compressed muscle and quiet certainty, her dark hair pulled back from her face in a tight knot. She wore the standard-issue gray training uniform of the Accord's combat division, no insignia, no rank markings, because she hadn't been assigned any yet. She was, technically, an observer. A student. A species representative enrolled in the cross-species integration program that the Council had launched with great fanfare and very low expectations. Across the circle, Master Kale Veyron regarded her the way a geologist regards a stone, with mild, professional interest and no particular emotion. He was tall, even by Valorian standards. 7 feet of layered muscle wrapped in pale gray skin that carried a faint bioluminescent shimmer along the ridgeline of his forearms. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world and had been refining martial tradition for 6,000 years. He had personally trained 43 species. He had broken the bones of creatures that could lift a ground transport vehicle over their heads. He had 7 formal titles, and used none of them. He had requested Mara specifically. Not because he believed in her. Because he had read the reports, and he wanted to understand what the humans thought they were doing sending this to his program. "You are smaller than I expected," he said. His translator rendered his speech in a flat, even tone that missed the subtle condescension in his native harmonics. Mara's own translator, built into the calm piece behind her ear, caught it anyway. She had spent 3 weeks calibrating it for nuance. "I get that a lot," she said. "Your species has been in interstellar contact for less than 40 years. You have no combat tradition we recognize as formal. Your physiology has no natural weapons, no venom, no carapace, no significant claw structure. Your bone density is adequate but unremarkable." He tilted his head. "Why are you here, Mara Ellison?" "Because I was sent," she said. "That is not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." She stepped into the circle. "Can we start?" Kale Veyron studied her for a long moment. Then, without warning, he moved. He was fast, genuinely, terrifyingly fast, the way apex predators are fast, not in a way that telegraphs itself but in a way that simply arrives. His right hand came in open-palmed, aimed at her shoulder, a test strike, but calibrated to knock a mid-mass being 6 feet sideways. Against a human, the force would have dislocated the joint. His wrist never reached her. Mara's left hand moved first. She didn't block the strike, she stepped into it, inside the arc of his arm, her grip closing around his wrist with the precision of a mechanical clamp. Her thumb found the pressure point on the inner joint, the nerve cluster that sat just beneath the surface of almost every bilaterally symmetrical species she had studied. Her body weight shifted back and down in the same breath, redirecting his momentum rather than fighting it. The world tilted. Kale Veyron found himself looking at the ceiling. He hit the mat with a sound like a thunderclap, and for exactly 1.4 seconds, a duration he would think about later, in private, he did not move. Not because he was unconscious, but because his nervous system had not yet processed what had happened to it. Silence. Not the respectful silence of a watching crowd. The stunned silence of 30-odd alien combatants who had watched their master leave the floor. Mara released his wrist and stepped back. She was breathing slightly harder than before. That was all. Kale Veyron rose slowly, his bioluminescent markings cycling through a deep amber that meant, in his species, something close to recalibration. He looked at his own wrist. Then he looked at her. "Again," he said. She nodded. He came at her 7 more times over the next hour. She put him on the mat on the 4th, 6th, and 7th passes. He managed to sweep her legs on the 2nd and pin her briefly on the 3rd. She escaped in under 4 seconds. On the 5th, they locked into a stalemate that lasted nearly 2 full minutes, both of them absolutely still, each waiting for a shift in weight, a loosening of grip, a breath in the wrong direction. He released her first. Not because he was losing. Because he needed to think. Afterward, they sat on opposite sides of the hall, drinking fluids. Mara pressed a cold compress to her left forearm where his grip had left a bruise that was already blooming spectacular purple-green against her skin. "You anticipated my first strike," Cale said. It was not an accusation. It was the opening of a question. "No," she said. "I read it." "Explain." Mara looked at the compress on her arm. "Your right shoulder dropped 0.3 centimeters before you moved. Your weight shifted forward on your left heel. Your secondary eyelid began to close. Your species does that when you're focusing for contact." She looked up. "I didn't anticipate anything. I just watched." A long silence. "No species in my program has ever identified my secondary eyelid as a tell," he said. "I know. I read your training reports on the flight over. All 43 species." She paused. None of them came from a planet that produced 8 major martial art disciplines in 4,000 years, either. Cale Veyron was quiet for a time. The amber in his markings had faded to something cooler, a pale blue that his species associated with reorientation. A change of mind. "Your people have been fighting each other," he said slowly, "for the entirety of your recorded history." "Yes. And you brought that with you." "We bring everything with us," Mara said. There was no pride in it. Just honesty. "We can't help it. We're built that way." He looked at her, really looked, in the way he had looked at very few students in 60 years of teaching. "Your bone density is unremarkable," he said again, but slower this time. Like he was updating a file. "Yet you held a wrist lock that should require, by my calculations, approximately 40% more grip strength than your species possesses." "Leverage," she said. "And the right angle. Strength is a shortcut. It's not the only path. You were not afraid when I struck at you." "I was terrified," she said simply. "But fear's just adrenaline. It made me faster." Cale Veyron stood. He walked back to the center of the circle and turned to face her. His posture had changed, less the languid authority of a master who already knew the outcome, and something sharper, more present. The posture of someone who had found a problem worth solving. "In 6,000 years of Valorian combat tradition," he said, "we have refined the body. Hardened it. Enlarged it. Optimized it for force and resistance." He paused. "I think you understand something we do not." Mara stood and walked back to the circle. The bruise on her arm hurt. She didn't mention it. "We understood it out of necessity," she said. "When you can't be the biggest or the strongest, you have to be the smartest. You have to be the one who sees everything and wastes nothing." She looked at him steadily. "That's been our whole history." Master Cale Veyron inclined his head, the Valorian gesture, she had read, that translated most accurately as I am listening now, in a way I was not before. "Then teach me," he said. Mara Ellison blinked once. Then, for the first time since she had arrived on the station, she smiled. "I thought you'd never ask." She stepped forward, set her feet, and raised her hands. And this time, it was the human who moved first.